Hey YouTube, I'm Sparkle 35, I'm the mother of 5, and I have borderline personality disorder. Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I've already created an introductory video for you to watch. My last video was an introduction to me and how I came about getting the diagnosis, the things that I was going through at the time that sparked my decision to get with a mental health professional and get some insight as to what was going on with me and why. I made this channel to bring awareness to people who are living with various disorders and how life moves just a little bit differently for them. I've always been considered to be a strong individual to the people around me, but they really don't realize how much of that is me masking. I also wanted to make this channel because I don't see a lot of people that look like me that are talking about this right here. I don't know exactly what it is about mental health in our community and why more people don't talk about it, don't acknowledge it. Like, I don't sit down with my family and have conversations about mental health. We talk about everything else, our struggles in relationships, our struggles with finances, our struggles with children, but we don't talk about our mental health. So this channel is for those that are looking for more content about people who are interested in mental health. I can't go to certain people, even though they're close to me, because they might judge me for the things that I'm feeling, or feel like, hey, I've been having some issues and I feel like I don't have anybody to talk to, or simply because they don't understand what I'm going through, the thoughts that I'm having and how I'm feeling, and it's something that they probably cannot relate to. So if you're interested in mental health, or you have BPD and you want to see someone with a face that looks like yours, or is someone who is talking about issues that you yourself relate to, this is going to be the channel for you. We take in a lot of stimulation on a day-to-day basis, whether it be from stress, whether it be from social media. Not all of it is positive. There's a lot of negativity in it, and we're filtering that into our bodies, into our minds every single day. Over a period of time, our bodies start to react to it. And if you aren't used to having a conversation about your mental health and how your mind works, you may not even think about what you're taking in and how it's affecting you, how it's affecting how you react to the world around you. Have you ever wondered why you wake up and you're sad, you're angry, you're depressed, you're feeling like you don't want to get out of the bed, you're feeling like you don't want to go to work today? And what things inside of your environment have you feeling like that? That's all mental health. Analyzing what you need as a human being to be able to function properly in this world and to be able to function to your best potential with the people that are around you. That's all mental health. So before I go off on a tangent, this video is supposed to be about the 9 traits of my borderline personality disorder, which, if you're not familiar with borderline personality disorder, BPD for short, it is characterized by instability in your behavior, in your relationships, as well as your emotions. If you are familiar with traumatic experiences, if you've ever had a traumatic experience, which is when a situation activates your fight, flight, or fawn response in the brain, then you are possibly familiar with the impact that experience can have on your brain, it can have on your nervous system, it can have on all parts of your body. I didn't see my mom very much growing up, not that I can remember at least. Honestly, I spent a lot of time fantasizing about what it'd be like to be with my mom. Living with my grandmother was not easy. I dealt with neglect and physical abuse. My mom and I have since had plenty of conversations where she talked about her own life growing up with her mother and how difficult it was for her. As an adult, I sit back and I wonder, why on earth was she the one that got custody of me, of all people that live in my family? But as an adult now too, I understand sometimes it's just like that. Grandma was old school, baby. Grandma believed in whooping your tail when you did not do what it was you were supposed to be doing. Destroying things, getting into stuff, not listening, talking back, all that is warrants and grounds to get your tail torn up, baby. But the interesting thing was, I didn't spend a lot of time doing that. I actually spent a lot of time trying to seek her approval and make her happy with me. Children love nothing more in this world than to make their parents happy. They will put on a show, a song, and a dance if they think it'll make you smile. Grandma was super particular. She taught me how to clean the bathroom and to clean the house at like a very young age. And if I didn't do it to her specifications, I was getting my tail torn off. But wait a minute. She would do things like, I would get into something earlier in the day. I'm 5. And she wouldn't say anything to me. She would wait all the way until I got into that bathtub before bed and I was all wet, and then she would tear me up. Now you know that if you whoop a child when they are in the bathtub, they're finna have welts all over them. And she knew she was doing something that wasn't right, baby, because before I go to school in the morning, she had that conversation with me. Oh, make sure that you keep your bangs over your face because I'd have a bruise or a welt or something right here. Make sure you keep your bangs down and don't go talking to the teachers and telling them nothing. We had that conversation in the morning before I go to school. And how do you think I felt? I was resentful. I think one day I was so mad about it. I was like, you know what? They finna find out about this today. You're not finna keep doing this to me. Meanwhile, these are the thoughts I'm having at 5. Is this a normal 5-year-old thought process? Like, come on. I remember one day I was so upset because I believe I had taken the pledge and cleaned the living room. And with Grandma, you had to lift up all of her glass and pictures, frames, and all her little knickknacks and make sure you got up under there. Well, I'm 5. One day I was like being 5. And so I didn't do it exactly how she wanted me to do it. And man, she tore me up. But you gotta remember, I'm 5. What 5-year-old is even that concerned about attention to detail? That's almost abnormal. Oh, she got me so good that day. So you know what I did, baby? I went into her sewing kit because I had a big old welt on my forehead right here. And she had styled my hair just so, baby, so it would hide that welt. Okay, you know what I did? I went into that bathroom, honey, and I sheared off my bangs completely. There was no way that she could do my hair. Oh, she was hot. Ooh, boy, she was hot. And I think she kept me out of school for like a day or so to see if the swelling and bruising would go down. And baby, it didn't, baby. So she had no choice but to send me to school. My kindergarten teacher was like, Sparkle, what happened? Well, I sang like a little bird, baby. I was tired, honey. I was tired of that. Day in, day out, getting beat for no reason or getting beat for things that, because she was having a bad day or because she was frustrated with me. Oh, no, baby. I was telling. But on the flip side of that, there were so many different things that were going on in the background, things that I didn't understand. All of these feelings were coming up. Of course, when I would get in trouble with my grandmother, I would feel bad about it. I would feel bad. I didn't want her to be upset with me. What child wants the adult to be upset with them? They don't. So I felt bad about her being angry. I used to try to figure out things that I could do. Maybe I could draw her a picture and she would be happy. She would be nicer to me today. And nothing that I was able to do was able to change her way that she saw me and the way that she treated me. So that right there made me feel like I was alone and that I had nobody around that would care for me. It got to the point where any relationship where someone treated me with dignity and respect, the basics of human interactions, I would cling to them. I remember having a friend in first grade. Her name was Melissa Cougar, and I believe it was first grade. And Melissa was a really cool homegirl. She was so sweet. I think she was a grade ahead of me, I think. And I think she lived, I believe she lived, if I can recall, I believe she lived in the back, like our backyards touched. And we would talk to each other through the fence and whatnot. And when my grandmother and I moved from that house, I was so sad. It wasn't often that I could find kids that I got along with like that. And I think some of the kids thought maybe that I was a little weird because I was more of a clingy child. I wanted somebody to play with that would be nice to me. And kids, they tease each other, they pick on each other, they do all of that type of stuff, right? And I was so emotional. Living in a house with my grandmother the way that she was, I just couldn't handle that. So what started to happen is I started to develop what's called black and white thinking, polarized thinking. So if somebody was nice to me, oh, I loved that person. Oh, they were great, they were awesome. I tried my best to sing, song, dance them into being my friend, into being around me a lot so that way I could enjoy their company. And what happened on the flip side of that was if somebody was mean to me, because I couldn't take it out of my grandmother because she was an adult, and of course I can't, I'm a child, I can't go up against my grandmother like that. We're not equal opponents. So what would happen was if a child would pick on me, I would find a way to get back at them without having my grandmother find out. Because of course you already know what's going to happen if grandma finds out that I got into a situation at school, or if a teacher comes back to her saying, hey, this is what happened with so-and-so, even if the other child was the aggressor, because I was involved and because I was bringing attention to her and making her look bad or whatever have you, or I was finna get it. I remember there was a time when there was a little boy, I believe his name was Jonathan or Jeffrey, I think it was Jeffrey. So me and Jeffrey were on the school bus and Jeffrey kept bugging me, picking at me, bugging me the entire school ride. I'm trying to ignore him. I'm trying to use little different coping mechanisms because all of it is I'm in an avoidance space. I'm trying to avoid any type of conflict because I don't want to get in trouble, because I don't want my grandmother to find out. So Jeffrey bothered me to the point where I got so upset. By the time we got to school, I punched this boy in the face. And we had to be in like the second grade, I believe. It was a reaction. It was just, everything got bottled up inside of me and I was so frustrated. I ended up punching little Jeffrey and oh my goodness, I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified. I couldn't wait for that bus driver to open that door. When the bus driver opened the door and let us out, I ran to the office. I ran to the principal and I immediately went to the office and I said, I just punched a little boy in the face. I know you're gonna call my grandma. Can you please not call my grandma? It was an accident. I'm so sorry. He was bothering me on the bus. He was picking on me from the beginning. I couldn't handle it. I ended up punching him. I'm in tears. I'm hysterical by this point. Of course, they ended up calling my grandmother anyway because the little boy's nose was bleeding. And I got it. I got it good. I got it real good. What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these traumas and the issues that you're having, they actually stem from childhood, from being put into situations that you don't have any control over, and almost like the adults expect you to have an adult reaction, adult emotions. And if you think about it, a lot of adults can't even control their own feelings and thoughts and emotions as an adult. So it's null and void. Oftentimes, because people with BPD did not grow up with the caregivers in their life showing them a healthy sense of boundaries, we often don't have boundaries. We often don't understand boundaries, and usually what it takes is a lot of life experience for us to bump our heads up against people who have healthy boundaries, who, or at least know what boundaries are and should be, to develop those boundaries. In the midst of dealing with those type of life experiences, we end up displaying a lot of toxic habits and a lot of toxic traits with our family, friends, and significant others, who oftentimes themselves display a lot of toxic traits. And that's the type of interaction that you have back and forth, is two people with underdeveloped coping mechanisms, lack of boundaries, etc., that are trying to have a relationship with one another, and oftentimes it can be difficult to do so. One of the traits of BPD is having a lack of a sense of self, which basically means that the caregivers that we had in our lives in our early child development, they didn't help us figure out who we are in this world, what our likes are and what our dislikes are, how to positively function as being our whole selves, and being able to relate that to the outside world, such as developing a set of friends that care about us and our needs, and showing us how to reciprocate those healthy relationships. People with BPD are acutely aware that these things are missing within them, so they do a lot of seeking of emotional validation. I know that as a young girl growing up, as I started to get older and started heading into my teenage years, I started going through different phases. I questioned religion. I just didn't feel very grounded. I didn't feel cemented. I wasn't sure of who I was and what I wanted to be in this world. I was jealous of the children who knew that they were going to grow up and become a doctor or become an astronaut, whose parents allowed them to explore those sides of themselves to figure out what their path was in life. As I got older and started taking on different roles, it was really once I became a mom that everything really came to a head and started spinning out of control. I became a mother at a very early age. I was 14 when I got pregnant with my first child and 15 when I had her. I was trying to be the best sister, the best daughter, the best auntie, the best cousin, the best wife, the best mother. And me trying to please all of these different people, I was struggling with trying to make sure that this person was happy with how they saw me as a mother, and this person was happy with how they saw me as a daughter, and this person was happy with how they saw me as a friend, and all of that started to conflict with each other, and it created a lot of problems and a lot of chaos within my life. People with BPD can be very impulsive. And when I say impulsive, we do a lot of self-soothing. If you're not familiar with endorphins, endorphins are the chemical that's released in the brain that give you all the good, feel-good, happy feelings and soothe your nervous system and all that good stuff. The problem is that the tools that give us the greatest amount of endorphins in the shortest period of time are often not healthy. Examples of this for me are eating disorders. I struggled with bulimia as a teenage girl, self-harm. I used to cut and I used to bite myself when I would feel a strong surge of emotions, like if I was angry or if I was saddened by something. These are the tools that I used to use in order to release those endorphins so that I would feel better quickly. Overspending, baby, going shopping is like, you know what it's like to go on a shopping spree, or just to go shopping, period, to buy something that you like. It feels good, it feels great. But I put myself into $25,000 worth of credit card debt by the time I was 19 years old. So that's within a year's worth of time. Not good, not good at all. And acting out sexually. That has been a huge problem in my life for a long time. Yes. When I was divorcing my ex-husband, I went through a period of time where there was so much stress because obviously getting a divorce creates great changes in a person's life, not only for the husband but for the wife as well. And so when we separated, I ended up taking the 3 children with me. We had to find a new place to live. I had to figure out how I was going to get to work. I didn't have my husband there to be able to make sure that everything was going to be okay. It was just me trying to figure all of these things out in a very abrupt period of time. And because when we decided to separate, then it was like, okay, somebody has to move out, somebody has to go. And because we were staying at his parents' house, I was the one who up and left. Ex-husband and I, our relationship was not on good terms. In fact, it was on horrible terms. We couldn't stand each other by that point. So every opportunity that we took to snipe and gripe at each other, we absolutely did. We were still young. We were only 25 years old. So we made the situation definitely worse than what it could have or should have been. Since I was already dealing with my old traumas, and that separation of that relationship brought those abandonment feelings back in play strongly and intensely, and all of the emotion that I was feeling in regard to that separation, and from feeling like I was abandoned by different people for different reasons that brought the dissolution of my marriage, I was feeling that in order to rid myself of those emotions, I felt like I needed to self-harm. As the situation started to get more intense, because like I said, we were lashing back and forth at each other, it got to the point where for me, it felt absolutely unbearable. I felt like I just didn't want to go through it. I was done with the situation. I was done with the emotions that came with it. I was done with all the process and everything that happens when you separate, and all the problems that I had after we separated. I just didn't want to have anything else to do with it, and I felt like the best thing for me to be was not here at all. Having those feelings and having 3 children that depended on me were what caused me to make the decision to go ahead and see a therapist, because I felt like I was in crisis mode. People with BPD often feel what I like to call a roller coaster moods. You can feel happy. You can feel so happy that you decide to do something impulsive because you were just so happy with life right now. Woohoo, life is great. People with BPD struggle with emotional regulation, and to actually go in there like, okay, I'm sad right now. Why am I feeling sad? The sadness is so great, it's overwhelming, and I don't even get to the point where I can start feeling like, why am I sad? It actually has to calm down a little bit for me. I actually have to try to find some type of coping mechanism that brings me out of that sadness a little bit, so then I can start having rational, logical thoughts like, okay, why am I upset right now? What happened to make me so upset? What was my role in it? What was their role in it? What can I do the next time I feel like this? All those things. When I'm feeling an intense amount of sadness, I can't pull myself out to think like that. I can't pull myself out to have those logical thoughts. And so I end up spiraling, whether it's sadness, whether it's anger. And this is not regular mad. This is outlandish. Like when you see someone doing something that you're like, whoa, I understand you're upset about that, but why did you have to take it that far? You know, such as road rage, or when you see situations like, for instance, someone being frustrated because they're not able to be in a relationship with another person. They're feeling upset, they're feeling sad by that, and they do something that you would consider outlandish, which is maybe harm the other person or harm themselves because they are feeling whatever they are feeling and it is overwhelming to them and they don't have the proper coping mechanisms in place. Now, I'm telling you that I'm not saying that all of these people that experience this have BPD, but what I'm saying is that is the type of how extreme our emotions can get, and then what it does is we end up in situations that we have no business being in because we're dealing with emotions that for us are out of control and that we don't have the proper coping mechanisms in place for. But those feelings of intense emotions come at a cost, because it is draining to feel so upset, so sad, guilty, full of shame. You get the racing thoughts going on, you start to spiral, and it's very, very overwhelming, and it's terrifying, because then what happens is when you feel those emotions like that, then you're prompted to do some type of action that either helps the situation or worsens the situation. When you think about it, you spend 18 years under the care and guidance of somebody else. That is a long time to have different situations thrown at you, and you being put into different situations that you don't have any control or autonomy in. You can't make the decision to remove yourself from that, because where are you going to go? You can't pay your own way. You can't take care of yourself. You don't have the tools to be able to be on your own. So when you're a young child and you're being put into situations, physical abuse, physical harm, sexual abuse, when you're being put in all those different situations, and you as a child are being preyed on by the adults that are supposed to be providing you with care and protection, you start developing these ways of handling that, of coping in your mind, that are not healthy. And as you grow, you haven't learned any healthy coping mechanisms, so you continue to have those unhealthy coping mechanisms into adulthood. And that's what causes the clash between one adult to another, is because of those traumas that are from your childhood that you have not filtered out, or even you haven't even begun to process, because life is moving, and life is moving so fast, it doesn't slow down enough for you to be like, life doesn't sit here and be,
okay, Sparkle, take a couple days off, and you sit there and you think about all the things that have transpired, and you figure out how to make sense of it all.
Life keeps on moving. So when you're an adult and you have life moving so fast, this way, that way, you're making decisions every day, things can get out of control, and things can get out of control fairly quickly. I've had plenty of instances feeling empty, but feeling like no one else is going to understand what I'm going through. I've faked it to make it, or I've masked, which is basically assimilating to what the next person beside me is doing, or how they're behaving, so that way I can kind of blend in and nobody notices that I'm over here dying inside. This can feel like a void, an empty void. People with BPD or people with other mental health issues, you know what I'm talking about. That void that you feel like you need to fill with stuff. Like I said previously, I've used food to fill that void. I've used spending. I've used stealing to fill that void. Sex, lots of sex. I've used that to fill the void. There's been so many things that I've used to try to fill that void that are definitely not healthy. And I'm just now getting to a space at 35 years old where I'm realizing a lot of these things from doing my own research and from talking to other people who are in a healthier state of mind, and being able to start processing some of these old things, so that way I can get some new habits instated and I can live a happier, healthier life. You definitely want to figure out what is at the base of the triggers. People with BPD often feel angry. I'm gonna tell you why. As a child, when you had a lack of autonomy, dealing with caregivers that didn't provide that to you. If you've never seen the Facebook ad that's come up, and it provides a lot of truth to it. It's a short ad, it's pretty quick, but it did say that children have 2 buckets that they need to fill up every day. So power and attention. So children need those 2 buckets filled every single day. They need to develop that autonomy. And when you have caregivers that did not nourish that within you as a child, what happens is you develop control issues. Anger is a symptom of not having autonomy. So that is a trigger a lot of times ends up with angry outbursts. With BPD, that is a huge issue right there, is the rage that you feel when something does not go your way or something is out of your control. And baby, you're tired of having stuff being you're tired of people basically living their life as if you don't exist and that you're not in it and you don't have thoughts and feelings and emotions and that you won't be affected by their decisions. It's very frustrating. And after living like that for so many years, you get to the point where everything makes you mad and everything pisses you off because you feel like people are just living as if you're invisible. And you can't have that anymore because you had enough dealing with that as a kid and living with mama or daddy or grandma who had this toxic behavior and this, that, and the third, and you're not gonna deal with that no more. If my brain is triggered by one of my senses, by a situation, by a person, and I perceive that as a threat, I automatically go into fight or flight mode. I usually go into fight mode, and baby, when I'm in fight mode, anything goes and I don't give a damn. I've been in too many situations where I should have gone to jail because of the way I reacted to a stimulus. When people with BPD are experiencing a large amount of stress or duress, they can exhibit symptoms of dissociation. For me, this has been where someone is talking to me and it's like my brain goes somewhere else. It kind of goes into I'm not here anymore. And so it's really weird, but I won't see the person anymore. I won't hear them. It's like my mind kind of goes into like self-protective mode. It reminds your brain of the time where you were in that life-threatening or in that traumatic situation. So basically, your traumas and your triggers cause you to go into survival mode, and you don't need to go into survival mode. Say you were sexually abused as a child. I'm going to use that as an example because I was sexually abused as a child. When I was sexually abused, whenever I would even smell this man's cologne, my mind would go into, okay, I don't want to be at the house right now because he's there. I want to be far away from the situation I possibly can. I'm gonna go to my friend's house. So every time I smelled that cologne, my brain automatically associated that with him. Now I could have been walking down the street and it could have been some other person that was wearing this cologne, but because my brain has already associated that cologne with this man right here in this situation, I'm gonna see that man and automatically my heart's gonna start pounding. I'm gonna smell the cologne, my heart's gonna start pounding. I'm going to start exhibiting other types of where my nervous system is basically in scrambles right now because I'm trying to figure out, do I need to run? Do I need to hide? Like, what's going on? I've smelled this cologne and now I'm like freaking out. This one right here has been the scariest trait for me because when I separated from my husband, I actually had a psychotic break, and that psychotic break involved me to have blackout episodes. I could be doing anything. Like, I'll just say, one time I was at the park with my kids and we had gotten to the park. It had to be like noon, and I gave them lunch. After we had lunch, we went outside to the park to go play for a while. I anticipated being there for a couple hours, letting them run around while I could kind of like sit and think and get some time to myself because, you know, they were kids. They still need to be able to do kid things, but I needed to be able to be inside my head to process some of these things that were going on, right? We got out of the car, went to the park to start playing, and next thing you know, I snapped to, and the sun is going down. The sun is going down, and it was about seven something already. I freaked out. Mind you, I was having a conversation with my daughter during this time period. I have no idea to this day what we were talking about. All I know is I stopped talking when I came to, and my daughter looked at me like, "Mom, are you okay?" And I wanted to freak out. Needless to say, those type of episodes continued on for years. Whenever I would get into high stress situations, it's almost like my brain just reacted by shutting everything down. I haven't had a Blackout episode in about 3 years or so now. I try to keep my life low stress so that way I don't have an episode where I'm here but I'm not. That concludes the 9 traits of BPD. I hope you've been able to find some of this information helpful or useful, or maybe just entertaining. If you like what you saw, please share, please like, please subscribe. I want to grow my channel and I want more people to be able to have access to this type of content. And I'm more curious and interested to see who else out there have been dealing with anything like what I have been talking about here in this video, as well as the last video. Are there more young African American people out there who feel like, hey, I don't have BPD, but I have struggled with this issue for a long period of time, and maybe I might like to go in and see a therapist and try to get some of this stuff worked out because it's prohibiting me from being my very best self. And that's really all we want to do here, is be our very best version of ourselves so that we can go out in this world and do great and amazing things and make great changes in the lives of others. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about anyway. If you can relate to growing up with folks that limited your autonomy or that were not the best caregivers, and now you are in a space where you're trying to do things different, leave a comment below. Let's have a conversation about that. Until next time, this has been real. This has been wrong.